Hello and welcome to tonight's special presentation of the guts that you need to overcome infections. My name's Dan Trussler, I'm from Ancestral Health, and I'm pleased to have you with me this evening. As we're waiting for people to join us, I'd love to know where in the world you're joining us from today. So type in the chat box whereabouts you are tuning in from. So we've got some people coming in from Scotland. Hi, Leanne from Scotland. And we've got some people in Buckinghamshire. Great. Anybody else be interested to know if we've got somebody outside the UK tuning in tonight? That's great. I'd also like to know from everybody if there's something you'd particularly like covered today. If there's a burning question you have about immune health, we're going to try and stick away from the C word tonight. This is about your overall immune health. So if there is a question that's really on your mind, then do post that in the chat as well, so that I can make sure that's covered, and maybe even somebody else who's listening has input to your question too. So yeah, if you have any questions that you'd like answered, we're just going to go live on Facebook here, and then we're going to get the presentation up and running. Okay. Hi Maria, nice to have you on this evening. So let me share my screen. Now, can everybody hear me okay? And can everybody see my PowerPoint slide? If you could just type in yes in the chat box to just let me know that everything's okay with the screen and the audio, and we'll get started. So a little disclaimer to start with. This material is for information purposes only. It's not meant to treat or diagnose or constitute medical advice, but I think you're all pretty aware of that. Now, I was going to start with my story. So my childhood was dominated by allergies. I was an asthma sufferer as a child. I was a kid of the blue and the brown inhaler. I didn't have one of those fancy circular ones that I sometimes see nowadays. Luckily, I did grow out of my asthma, but I also had horse allergy, cat allergy. If I go near any of those animals, my eyes would stream. I'd start getting really swollen around my eyes, and that was a start for me of having a raised immune system. It's like my immune system was on lookout from an early age in childhood. The other big thing was eczema. So that not only was in my childhood, but that then carried on into my adulthood, and started to really affect me in my early 20s when I was at university. Wanting to go out and party and things like that, but my hands would just weeping, they'd bleed, and I'd just be scratching them overnight. So I'd have to wear cotton gloves to bed to stop myself from scratching them, which, as you can imagine, wasn't the most fashionable thing in my early 20s. This actually was the turning point for me in my health, and what I came to realize, that in order to get control of my skin, which is very related to the immune system, I had to get hold of my gut health. And it started by changing the diet, but that only had a certain effect. And it wasn't until I reached out to a functional medicine practitioner 5 years ago, had some lab testing done, and realized that I was dealing with leaky gut and had to really work on my gut health to get to the root cause of my eczema. And that's what prompted me to then study. I'd already done an osteopathic degree by this point, so I was well versed in how the body works, but I needed some extra training to be able to analyze lab tests, sometimes blood tests, and and really get to the root cause of people's health symptoms. So did you know that more than 70% of your immune system is housed in your gut, which is pretty big stat there. It really is. If we want to get on top of these chronic infections that I know some of you listening today will have been affected by recently, then we have to get hold of our gut health. Throughout this journey of learning more about health and myself over the last 10 years now, I've come to believe that truly health begins at home, and we all have the power to have a huge influence on our health status through the fundamental principles that we teach our children and we live by day to day. So I know we're currently in isolation, but one of my big things is for everybody to get outside and see the daylight every day. So hopefully you are taking advantage of the fact in this country, we're still fortunate that we are given that grace of being able to go outside. There are other countries with much stringent laws on going out at the moment. So yeah, health begins at home and not in your doctor's surgery is the talk that I give to women's institutes as I travel around Essex and give those talks. So that's that's me and my fiance there, Holly. Let's get some water. Another part of my journey was helping Holly to overcome her health symptoms. And we applied the same lifestyle principles that I'm going to talk to you about this evening to get Holly from a place where she was predicted not to be able to conceive naturally. And as you can see there are two boys, Teddy and Bowden. And one of the things I'm most grateful for with the knowledge that I've gained over the last 10 years is that I can pass these skills of how to look after yourself on to my boys. And I know that, as long as they fall within those guidelines, they're going to be able to keep themselves well and not be concerned and overly panicked and fear-ridden, which is what we're seeing in society at the moment, because people just don't have the belief and trust in their own health, their own body, and their fear is that something from external, this virus is going to come and infect them. But we're exposed to chemicals on a huge basis, 80,000 chemicals on an annual basis. So, the only thing we can control is the internal environment. And we're going to touch a little bit more on that later. So my aims for you are here on the screen at the moment. You'll notice there that I've put dis-ease. So rather than disease, which I think can be a label given to people and that really becomes their identity as such, I like to think of things as dis-ease. Your body's not in a state of ease at the moment, but we still have that potential to return back to it. And this is not something your doctor's going to tell you. This is completely a different way of looking at health than you're going to get from the mainstream medical professionals. The doctors are very much around diagnosing a condition and then giving treatment for it. Whereas we're looking at what can we optimize in that individual to help them return to health. So some of you on the call might resonate with this lady on the left here. You might already have an existing diagnosis, or you might just be suffering from symptoms such as fatigue. You might have had recurrent infections over this last year. You might have digestive upset. When you're in this state, it can feel really isolating. You can feel lonely, like you're on an island. You don't really know where to turn. Often people in this state have gone to doctor's visits and come back and felt very disheartened and disappointed with the outcomes of those visits. And it can be really difficult to imagine getting to your desired state. So that's what I hope to do for you today. I want to be able to bridge that gap of where you are at the moment to where you can get to with a proven method using fundamental principles of health creation. So I want to give another opportunity to anyone who's maybe joined us a little bit later than advertised tonight. Why are you here on this webinar tonight? What are you looking to get out of this presentation? And I can just jump into the chat box now and just see what we've had so far. So let's have a little look. Yeah, everybody can hear okay, that's great. Anybody with a particular question that they want covered and something that brings them here today beyond, you know, information gathering? Okay, yeah, making sure your family stays healthy, that's great. Joe can hear. To beat inflammation and ease IBS and tiredness, great. Okay, if anything else comes up for anybody, feel free to post it in the chat, and we can cover it, or we can also have some time for Q&A at the end. So I want to introduce you to this idea of the terrain theory, how our internal state of our body is. And I thought this was a really fantastic example, and you know, quite poignant given the situation that we find ourselves in. So the biggest foodborne infection epidemic occurred about 50 years ago in the Midwest, in Michigan, in the US. It was a salmonella outbreak, but it only really occurred in people who within the previous 6 months had been administered an antibiotic. So basically the antibiotic had set the stage that allowed the salmonella to overgrow and lead to some of the more serious infections. So here we get to the condition, and a lot of the time at the moment, they're saying that it's people with pre-existing health conditions that are being affected by the C virus at the moment. So it's the state of the constitution of that individual that's then enabling that infection to take hold. So that's why our focus has always got to be on getting what's known as our terrain, our constitution as strong and as robust as it can be. The research is very clear now on what antibiotics do for our gut microbiome. They basically just wipe everything out, both the good bugs and the bad bugs. So we can see here on the right, we're all aiming for a high diverse microbiome, really lots of different bacteria, the particular strains that we know are beneficial to be within there. Whereas after antibiotics, we get low diversity, and yeah, the strains that are most resilient just are able to survive. Interestingly, the World Health Organization now rates antibiotic resistance as a greater threat to human survival than terrorism. So that's where, if we just keep plastering antibiotics on infections, that's the route we're going to go down. So I encourage you to ask this question of yourself. What are the root causes of my symptoms? I like this diagram. We can see at the bottom here all the different variations of root causes. We've already had inflammation mentioned by one of our guests this evening, and the largest cause of that is the digestive tract. But you can have any number of combination. It can be the diet, but there's more to this than diet. If there wasn't, I'd just sell cookbooks. It can be self-image, and that can relate back to beliefs you have about yourself that were formed in childhood. It can be toxicity. You can have mold in your environment, in your home, that can cause upregulation of the immune system and lead to infections, or any number of those manifestations of labels that we can see at the top there. So I thought I'd introduce the different lifestyle techniques that we use with our clients through a case study here. So this is Katie. I've covered her name up for a different name. And she came to me mainly due to her energy, but in her history, she'd also had a number of different infections, UTIs and chest infection in the previous 2 years before seeing me. So her immune system was pretty low. And what we see with when an immune system goes out of balance is the usual digestive pattern. So we see low stomach acid, which is prevalent as people age. Our stomach acid decreases with age, and poor enzyme secretion from the pancreas. So we're starting to get the symptoms of maldigestion. That maldigestion over a period of time then leads to irritation of the gut lining and what's known as dysbiosis, which is an imbalance of the good and bad bacteria. So we get an overgrowth of some of the more pathogenic bacteria and yeast in our digestive tract, and a lessening of the beneficial bacterial strains that give our digestive tract robustness. This, again, over time, this irritation of the gut lining leads to leaky gut, and that allows bigger proteins to enter into our bloodstream, which triggers the immune system. And this leaky gut has been shown now to be linked with a whole number of different issues, ranging from autoimmune conditions, diabetes, fatty liver disease, lots of different issues, all linked back to the effect of irritation of the gut lining causing leaky gut. So this is two of the lab tests that we run. So we can see here at the top, this is the comprehensive blood panel that we run that then makes a forecast based upon, in this case, largely the white blood cells, but also many other markers. And this predicted that a lady had 82% likelihood of a parasitic infection and a 76% chance of an overgrowth of a bacterial infection within her body. And these are not necessarily symptomatic at this stage. These can be low-level infections that the body is keeping a hold of, but should stress and other situations arise, then these things are only going to manifest and get worse. And at the bottom here, we can see the immune markers that are measured on our comprehensive stool test that we use. Secretory IgA, that's the mucus lining. That's the first line of defense against pathogens in the gut. So that disruption of the gut lining can often be seen with a low level of secretory IgA. Now, this is a complex diagram basically that just shows that any disruption to our sleep, particularly sleep deprivation, has a huge knock-on effect to our immunity. It increases inflammation through a number of different mechanisms, and basically makes us a lot more susceptible to infections and other issues. So I like to track my sleep, and I recommend that others do this as well, because you might be thinking that you're getting a good night's sleep. So even after consumption of alcohol, you think, oh, you know what, I was conked out, I got 8-9 hours, but the quality of that sleep can be hugely different depending on those different circumstances. So I want to know not only how long was I in bed for, but also what was my resting heart rate and other markers such as heart rate variability to know that I'm getting good restorative sleep. So in this lady's case, and in a number of cases, there is chronic stress. Stress has a number of different effects on all of the systems of our body, but particularly the immune system. It's basically going to only focus on the immediate life-threatening situations, and is not going to worry about any of the more longer-term chronic infections that might be around. So we need to be in what's known as a parasympathetic state, or a rest and digest state. So that's what depicted on the right here. That's when our pupils shrink, we start to take slower breaths, our heart rate slows down, and then our body can start sending blood both to the digestive tract, but also to the elimination organs. There's a much greater percentage of blood flow goes to the liver and the kidneys when we're in this rest and digest, as opposed to the sympathetic fight or flight response that we see on the left here. So I want to invite everybody now, wherever you are, try and get 2 feet planted on the floor, and we're going to take ourselves into that parasympathetic state just by taking a nice slow deep in-breath through the nose, slow out breath, and just repeat that another 2 or 3 times. Hope that felt good. And that's something that we got this particular lady doing before every meal. We got her to have 5 deep, slow breaths. So she's taken her body into that rest and digest, which makes her digestive system much more receptive to all the functions that it needs to perform, such as breaking down our food and then absorbing the nutrition from it. Research shows that consuming high sugar content food, so for example, a can of Coke, has been shown to suppress immune function for 8 hours after consumption. So it really does have a huge effect on our immune system. It also will cause fluctuations in blood sugar. So you'll be going on a bit of a blood sugar roller coaster, and that has numerous different effects on hormonal levels. Most women that are getting towards the age of the change will note that if their diet slips and they're having more sugar in their food, that their hormonal symptoms are significantly worse. This is one of the best all-round foods for your immune system, but also whole health as well. It contains the full range of amino acids, so it's a complete protein source, as well as a great source of zinc. So if you like oysters, and these are the supplements that we use with this lady in particular. So calcium D-glucarate, which is a fantastic supplement for removing toxicity from the bowels. Vitamin C, zinc, Cistus incanus tea, which is a tea grown in Sardinia that has potent antibacterial, antiviral effects. Megaspore, which I'm going to touch on later, is our probiotic that we like to use. Mega IgG almost gives a surrogate immune system to the digestive tract. And reishi mushroom, which we like to, well, it's got huge amounts of research behind it. And we use tea and coffee that's been infused with reishi mushroom because of its effects, not only on the immune system, but also on liver function and heart function too. So if you want to read more into the benefits of reishi mushroom, do so, and you'll be amazed why it's not just a staple in everybody's diet. So hopefully this video is going to play and you're going to actually hear from...
Well, I noticed about 10 years ago, my energy was starting to decline, and I already had lived with stomach problems for years, back problems, but then I think it was about 4 years ago, I got made redundant, and that was quite a stressful time. I had a huge mortgage over my head. And I knew that I couldn't live the lifestyle anymore of working late, not eating properly. I think it was taking a toll on me. Stress of moving and losing my job, I just think that it used up all my reserves in my body, and I ended up feeling anxiety all the time, as opposed to now and again when pressures were on. I seemed to be collecting symptoms, getting bacterial infections, very low moods, just tired all the time. And the week before I came to see Dan, I ended up with dry eye and blepharitis as well. So it was like building up. And I also had chronic sugar cravings. I ended up getting so confused with the different diets and different... I knew what healthy food was, but I was trying to do different diets, and I was doing blood tests and I ended up with a bag full of supplements, all conflicting. And the worst thing is I did a cleanse. Halfway through, I had an anxiety attack, thinking, reading the instructions, thinking I haven't done the protocol properly. So I ended up in A&E. So I did go on YouTube, and I'd heard of functional medicine from, I think they were Americans actually, because I know it's quite big out there. And they were talking about treating holistically, which always made sense to me. And I looked for it in the UK, and I was really, really surprised and pleased, because down the road, Ancestral Health and the type of tests that they show, whether your neurotransmitters in your brain are working and how your body is actually functioning, and nutritionally what's going on. I had asked the doctors for nutritional tests, and they looked at me like I was crazy. So also having somebody to hold your hand and actually interpret the tests, and because I know that if you take things individually, you can make things worse. It's all about balance and doing the right thing at the right time. So also I asked Stan if he would buddy me up with somebody who was on doing the programme. So we've become good friends. But the biggest thing is like my energy coming back, I think, because I'm able to do more exercise, because it's a balanced health, mind, body and spirit. My digestion and stomach, I don't have that stomach bloating, and rarely have cravings, and if I do, I know why, which is half the battle. So I would say, don't hesitate, because you've got to have the right tests, otherwise it's just guesswork. But obviously you've still got to work on all the other things, the exercise, spiritual side and the mindset side as well. And the biggest belief is, well, I did believe it, but it wasn't happening for me, is that as we get older, we can get happy, healthier and fitter than we ever were before. And that's fired up my purpose. And it's remembering that as well. And that's basically wanting to help in raising other people's health and consciousness so they can feel as good as I do.
Okay. I dare say that some of you may resonate with Katie's story there, and you know, can feel where she was at with some of her symptoms at the start. And it's always nice to hear health transformations like that, because you know, we don't hear those. You don't go into your doctor's surgery and read about people that have made significant health transformations like that. So I did give you all the opportunity to fill in an immune system questionnaire. So if anybody has done that and has got that in front of them now, if you tally up the score, so each question was ranked from 0 to 3. If you tally those up, if anybody scored over 8, that shows that there is a strong need for further investigation to your immune system health. Between 5 and 8, there's a moderate need, and I'd still definitely recommend getting looked into. And 3 to 4 is a low need. It's still worthwhile, because we want to optimize our health and be the best we can be. But perhaps, you know, it's not as desperate as if you're over 4 or 5. So one of the questions, interestingly, was how many times have you been sick, or do you ever get sick? And it's completely normal to get sick and have a period of unwell symptoms, would be that, you know, cold, flu, once, sometimes twice a year. It's the immune system's way of clearing out toxicity and detoxifying. So it's completely normal. It often happens when the stress levels drop in your life. I wouldn't be surprised if teachers, when they go on holidays at Easter and summer holidays, they nearly always become unwell at that time, because the stress levels have dropped. The body's built up with toxins because they've been under pressure, and then their body suddenly detoxifies at that moment. However, we often tell ourselves the story that we've caught something from somebody else, but it's more an internally generated event, in my opinion. So I said I was going to go through the white blood cell count range. So if anybody's got their blood markers to hand or wants to make a note of this. So the standard range, the range that if a doctor looked at it in the doctor's surgery and said you're absolutely fine, is between 3.4 and 10.8. It's times 10 to the 3, which is unnecessary, a little bit of maths. But the optimal range, when you actually look at the research, is a much narrower range. You want to be within 3.5 to 6. And if you're generally sitting on the lower end of a white blood cell count, that indicates a more chronic, longer term infection that's gone on. If you're at the higher end, if you're 6 or above, that shows that your body is more than likely fighting an acute infection or something immediate. Either one warrants rechecking in three months' time to ensure that the count has become normalized. So a second case I was going to talk about is a businessman who's got a high profile job in London, but for 4 months around August to November time last year, he'd been off work. He'd had chronic sinus infections and basically was completely wiped out. If at any point he went for any exercise, he'd just be completely fatigued for over a day or so. So yeah, he couldn't work. He had constant pressure and build up around his sinuses, headaches, and yeah, was a loss of where to turn to, because doctors had just prescribed him another round of antibiotics, and he realized that that's not the route he wanted to go down. So we ran some testing on him. In fact, we've retested his blood markers now. So what you're seeing here is from where we were back in October of last year. So yeah, it was October we started working together to now in March. So we've seen his white blood cells normalize from a low 4 to over 5. As well as that, his hemoglobin, which is what carries the oxygen, the part of the red blood cell that carries the oxygen around in our body. So essentially he was anemic back in October, and now we've normalized that. So he's no wonder that he started to feel like his brain can work again rather than feeling completely foggy headed. And we've seen a huge reduction in something called LDH, which is an enzyme that shows that there's been tissue breakdown in his body. And that can come from liver, kidneys, muscle breakdown. So we've normalized those levels as well over a period of 4 months. We also ran a viral panel on this gentleman and found that he had raised antibodies to something called Epstein-Barr virus. So here we're seeing a raised immune response to a virus, but it's a chronic virus. From the numbers, we can tell that it's been a long-term thing that's potentially been reactivated. Any viruses in our body, we never fully are able to eliminate them. We build an immune response. So it's a bit like a prisoner in a cell. You can never fully lock the key and walk away. You always need those prison guards, which is our immune system, walking backwards and forwards, making sure that that virus is in check and not having a chance to come out and have a party. So with a case like this, we certainly want to go through the gut repair protocol. So that is to remove any foods that are causing inflammation, sensitivities, allergies. We then need to replace those foods with more nutritious foods. We need to re-inoculate. So that's when we're starting to reseed the gut lining with beneficial bacteria. I saw a question in the chat about probiotics versus prebiotics. So probiotics have the potential, when they're a good quality one, like you see at the bottom here, Megaspore Biotic, which I would recommend looking into, has been shown to grow the beneficial bacterial strains that we need for good digestion, to absorb our food, and it also can pull out and actually weed some of the pathogenic bacteria out of that digestive lining. Whereas prebiotic, and in this sense you can take it supplementally, or you can eat prebiotic foods such as sauerkraut, kombucha, kimchi. They are fuel for our microbiome, so they feed the bacteria. So some people get on really well with them, others not so. Quite possibly that's because of, if you've got altered bacteria in the first instance, you may well just be feeding some of those pathogenic bacteria and adding to the dysbiosis. So it's individual, and I would say test for yourself to see what reaction you have to those prebiotic foods. But either way, a good probiotic, if you have any issues with your digestive tract, working alongside somebody who knows how to integrate a probiotic into your life is definitely worthwhile. And there was another question, and that was regards with antibiotics. So in an ideal world, we wouldn't need to take antibiotics, and that's the aim, is to keep ourselves well. Obviously, if you cut your leg and you've got an infection in an open wound or something like that, and you need antibiotics, at that time, I personally would take probiotics alongside the antibiotics and then continue for a period of, well, probably 3 months or longer afterwards, depending on the severity of the antibiotic that you took. We then need to regenerate that gut lining, and there's a number of different products that can do this, but one of the main ones is collagen. So collagen is found in our skin, nails, hair, and can be taken either as a supplement. The best source of food is broth. So the boiling of animal bones that brings out a lot of the collagen and the goodness in the ligaments and the bones of the animals that we can then consume, and that strengthens again our digestive lining. So Tony is now back at work and enjoying the challenge of his business. He's able to concentrate again because his brain is now sharp. So there's a huge link between the gut and the brain, which we haven't got into tonight, but that's clear in the research and from what I've seen when I work with people. And he's now able to enjoy being active again. And I spoke to him this week, and his plan is to cycle around Essex with our one exercise session that we allowed per day. And he's now back to being the dad that he wants to be. So again, significant changes that wouldn't have come about if it just followed the medical paradigm of, taking suppressive medication, or even, and there's a lot of people out there who are what I call go-it-yourselfers. And I was a little bit like this to start with. I wish I'd have reached out to a health practitioner a lot sooner than what I did, because I was kind of navigating, not really sure where I'm going, and really what I should have got was a sat nav, a clear direction to get from where I was to where I wanted to be in the quickest time possible. And that's to work with someone who's taken someone on that journey before, and knows how to navigate some of the fine paths that are needed on a health journey. So I'd love to know what your biggest takeaway so far is, and if any other questions have come up. I'm just going to check the chat box again. I answered Michelle's question about the sleep tracker was the Oura Ring, and I don't actually wear a watch. I'm more interested in how my body recovers than I am monitoring steps on, and the Oura Ring seems to be the best tracking device for sleep. Okay, so doesn't look like we've got any other questions in the chat. Feel free to pop them in there, and also post what your biggest takeaway so far is. Now, if it's okay, what I'd like to do is just present the program that each of these two people, I was going to say ladies, but there's a lady and a gentleman went through. They went through the Essentials program that we've developed here at Ancestral Health, and we've designed it to be the most comprehensive functional and lifestyle program available to you. The beauty of it is that it can all be delivered virtually. You don't need to come and see us in person. We've depicted it as scaling a mountain. It's a 6-month program, and over that time, your horizons completely change. When you're at the bottom of the mountain and you're struggling with your health, you can't imagine what it's like to look from that base camp at number 8 there, where you're going to be in 6 months' time. But all of this has to start with an honest self-assessment of where you're at, a full in-depth health history, which is what we go through with that initial consultation. You'll have already completed an intake form, very detailed, as many on the call will know, and that gives me an idea before we meet on where your root causes are, and we can go through those in more detail when I actually get to speak with you in that initial consult. And at that point, we can then decide whether we're right for each other. So we're going to leave no stone unturned. We're going to go through mindset. We outsource that to a coach. So again, you can work virtually with a coach. Chris, who's been through our program and has got a fantastic way of unlocking people's beliefs and mindsets that might be holding them back from achieving the health that they want. We're going to cover nutrition, digestion, sleep, movement, supplements, stress, your purpose. We're going to analyze your blood test. And you need that kind of comprehensive look if you're going to make a full health recovery. And this works whether you want to optimize your health or whether you are, you've already got a diagnosis of something. We're not going to treat that diagnosis. We're going to look at all these aspects of your life and optimize those so that you start to recover and to get back to a better state of health in as quick a time as your body is able to recover. So the full program needs you to commit your energy and intention towards living your best life. The cost of the program is $1,899. And there are some additional costs that are supplements along the journey. That program fee also includes the first blood test. So we offer direct laboratory pricing. So whether you have the stool test, blood test, and there are some other urine tests that we use as well, they will all be at the laboratory pricing, so we won't make any markup on the testing. Our skill is in the interpretation of that testing. You can have 14 one-hour-long consults with either a coach or myself as the clinician. We put in many hours of preparation and interpretation of your test results and setting up supplement protocols for you that is not seen by yourselves because it's done outside of the actual hours that we consult together. You have email contact with me 7 days a week. So at any point, if you have any issues with any part of the program, you get in touch and we figure that out and sort it out very quickly. There's no waiting until that appointment 3 or 6 weeks down the line. And we've got a very in-depth lifestyle guide that we've had put together that underpins a lot of the lifestyle changes that you'll be making. As well as that, I collaborate with some of the world's best clinicians who do this similar work, and we meet on a weekly basis to make sure that our minds are sharp and we are at the cutting edge of all the work that we're doing. So again, that's the program structure for you there. We also put on workshops. And at this time at the moment, we're certainly going to be looking to put on more online workshops where we can all jump on video calls like this and learn from a specialist area of somebody else. So maybe in the past, we've had a Pilates teacher, we had a breathing workshop, we've had an energy alignment workshop. So we're always looking to cover as many areas of health and well-being as we can for our clients. And for you, those of you today that may be listening to this and thinking that now is the right time for you to address your health issues, what we do is we'd jump on a free phone consult to start with, when we would have a chance to talk through what you've tried so far, what's worked for you, and whether you're in the right position to come and start working with us. If that's you, type me in the chat box or just drop us a message tomorrow, and Holly will be in touch with you to organize that. If you're not already, please do join our Facebook group. It's called Ancestral Health, Creating Healthy Families. I'll send you a link to that this week so you can come and join the conversations. It's been very engaging over this last week, as you can imagine, with the changes in our world, and I hope to keep it that way. I'd love to hear an email from you this week and how you've put into action something that you've learned today that you're going to commit to. I know there are a couple of questions that I haven't been able to answer. I just feel like they're a little bit more personal. I'll get back to those people individually. Please do spread the word. So the replay will be made available to you tomorrow, providing that it's downloaded sufficiently from the software that we're using here. And I will be looking to put more webinars on over the coming weeks. So I'd like now just to give you the opportunity to ask any more questions that you think are relevant for the whole group, or if you have something that you'd like me to answer now, before I close and get back to those individuals who do have slightly more personal questions to get back to. All good. Like the idea of deep breathing before food. Also interested in looking into your recommended supplements. Great. Thank you, Enjoyed your talk. Hope you rest up, Maria. Let's check in with each other tomorrow. Let's hope that that's not a particularly nasty virus that's affecting you at the moment. Thank you. Well, thank you to everybody for being here with me this evening. I wish you all a well 2 weeks. Let's hope it's just 2 weeks before we can get back to normality. And yeah, I look forward to connecting with you all in the future. Hopefully you'll all join us in that Facebook group.